Tonight, Cuba is a country in crisis. At least 10 million across the communist nation without power for the second time in 24 hours after one of the island's major power plants failed on Friday. The blackout putting angry residents closer to the brink of catastrophe amid repression and already growing shortages of clean water, fuel, and food. Because there is no one who can stand this, says this visibly frustrated resident. Regime officials blaming the problem on aging, crumbling infrastructure, already the source of regular rolling blackouts across the island, and on a shortage of fuel imports. The outrage pouring on the streets. The chants of, "We want electricity." The government declaring an emergency shutdown in a last-ditch effort to conserve what little energy was left.
This is a fatal blow of the failed policies, the failures of the Cuban regime on the Cuban people.
Amalia Dace is a scholar of the Cuban experience at the University of Pennsylvania. Is there any reason to believe that the Cuban government is going to be able to resolve this issue?
No, I don't think they're going to be able to resolve the issue. I believe they're going to continue to blame the United States for its problems, as it's done for the last 65 years.
Cuba's president has vowed there won't be any rest until the power is back on. But a new hurricane on the horizon, expected to hit Cuba tomorrow, could only deepen this disaster. George Solis.
Protests echo through the streets of Havana after another night lit only by lanterns and candles. Without electricity, we have nothing, says this woman. We don't have food, we don't have a way to work. Except for hotels and hospitals, 10 million people were without power when Cuba's national electrical grid crashed Friday. 4 tries to get things running again failed, leaving residents like Annabelle Gonzalez with even less than usual. Everything has gone to waste, the little I have. This is the only water I have. Outages are frequent on the island nation, though none this bad in recent years. The blackout affecting other vital services like water supply, since the pumps run on electricity. The economy paralyzed as the government shuttered all non-essential state services and businesses, including schools. The subsidized ration lines are longer than usual. The situation is bad, says this man. I'm 74 years old and I've never seen this before. Amidst an ongoing economic crisis, Cuba's communist government blames fuel shortages and the U.S. trade embargo and sanctions, as well as deteriorating infrastructure. We've been operating for many years without access to spare parts, says Cuba's energy minister. Canada's former ambassador to Cuba says countries like Canada need to help.
The Cuban people are in a very difficult situation, and one can debate political systems till the cows come home. That's not the issue here.
While Hurricane Oscar, which made landfall in Cuba this afternoon, threatens to make things worse, the Cuban people, no strangers to hardship, are making the best of it as they wait, going about their lives in darkness, at least until morning. Lisa Shing, CBC News, Toronto.
Man, you talk about bad circumstances, going through some things. This is just terrible, man. I'm laughing, but this is no laughing matter. It's not funny. It's just wild how flucked up the situation is out there in Cuba. Shout out to my guy, Lon, for putting me up on game on this story, man. You heard that one lady that, you know, her profession is studying up on Cuba, and I believe she is of Cuban descent, and she was like, when asked, are they going to be able to resolve this situation? She was like, no. And it's so wild. Apparently, this has been like an ongoing problem for many years, as Cuba's power runs off of thermoelectric power plants, which are considered prehistoric. Back in the 70s, which this runs off crude oil, you know what I mean? So they get shipments of oil in and try to produce some of their own or whatever, but it's all bad, it's twisted. And you hear of people like no water really. You hear of hospitals and hotels mainly having any power, or even keeping hospitals running. It sounds like this could just be a real disaster, and on top of it all, a hurricane's on the way. This is some serious disastrous type stuff. And like I was saying, they run off of this old crude oil system, And there's all these like embargoes placed on shipping to them, and it's just a real serious mess. I guess back in the 70s, Fidel Castro had a son that he sent to Moscow to study nuclear physics or whatever, so they could have a nuclear power plant on the island. And he studied, but when they came back, after he came back to Cuba, all they ever were able to do was build the shell of a nuclear power plant. So it's just like a skeleton of a power plant that never was, that sits on the island. And this has just been an ongoing problem forever, because on top of even getting or having the oil, the plant that it runs off of has all kinds of problems where they have to repair it, and it's like putting band-aids on bullet holes basically. And this is just something, I guess, that's been in the works for a long time, this disaster to where they're at right now. And I don't know, it's like a scary situation. There's this translator that's been doing what the best that he can to keep his phone charged, to speak with the media outside of the country, to put people up on game on what's really going down over there. And it sounds ugly. I get to some of the quotes that he was speaking with the news, but it says Cuba suffers second power outage in 24 hours, realizing years of warnings. Castro once called Cuba's power plants prehistoric, but the country still relies on them, contributing to the longest blackout since the collapse of its former patron, the Soviet Union. And you know, the experts, I guess, have been warning about this for years. But listen to this translator. This is what I was talking about. He said, "We are on an island of zombies, staggering around with no idea where to go." And this dude can barely keep his cell phone on to even text with the media. He says, "Maybe I won't be able to communicate much longer. We are on the Titanic and it's slowly sinking." So, you know, when you're comparing this island, a nation, to the Titanic disaster, we all know how that went. We all saw that movie with Leonardo DiCaprio. Everyone knows what happened. It sunk. And that's pretty scary. And then again, there's a hurricane on the way. And, you know, dude says it's a domino effect of a lot of different circumstances. Like I was saying, them running off of crude oil, you know, that's fuel for the plants that they have. And their own crude oil production is very heavy in sulfur and metals that can impair the thermoelectric combustion process. So that's what I was talking about, where these old plants that are prehistoric, the oil that they're running off are destroying the plants, and they constantly have had to been repairing them, the band-aids on bullet holes all these years. Like, it's ugly, man. And I guess even back in 2006, Castro had to get a bunch of diesel generators at one point in time, you know, sent to the country to keep things running. So that was in 06. All this stuff we're speaking of has been going on since the 70s, man. And at this point in time, in 2024, this country is seriously in the midst of a disaster. Like, this is a story I'm gonna keep an eye on, man. It's pretty scary. Hopefully something can be done. You hear that dude from Canada, the diplomat, that was saying, hey, like, you can speak of politics and communism or socialism. He didn't say that. I'm paraphrasing, but basically, you know, a lot of the things that you know, people talk about when dealing with Cuba, as you know, the U.S. don't mess with Cuba at all. And you heard that one lady talking about how, you know, they're blaming the problems on the United States. Like, at the end of the day, and then I remember too, there's stuff being reported in here about a brief honeymoon period during the Obama administration, where the U.S. and Cuba were working on like some trade and allowing U.S. citizens to go visit Cuba and it becoming a tourist destination. But ultimately that came to an end and ceased operations. But on the other end of that, you know what I mean? Like, this is our people living in horrible conditions, and it's a sad, messed up situation. So I don't know, you know, like, there's so much more to the story. Like we're talking about generators being sent there to keep shit running, ships that they had to lease to be able to get fuel. Like it's just so much of a problem that, like, if you really tap into this situation and really study up on, research up on what's going on, like we said, this shit has been going back to the 70s. What's that, 50 some years ago, and none of their equipment that they're working with over there has gotten upgraded in all these years. And you know what I mean? Like, it's kind of a miracle in the sense that they've been able to keep power all these years. So I don't know, sad, twisted situation. What will be the outcome, man? A lot of people over there trying to survive, and I don't know, my heart goes out to them seeing all this play out. And on top of it all, they're saying, the translator that I was speaking of, he flat out said the government is bankrupt. Or no, that's someone else saying that, but someone else speaking to the media. This person is a economist speaking out, saying, yo, they're broke. So broke, no power, hurricane on the way, a Titanic, a sinking ship is what the country, the island, is being compared to. This shit is crazy, man. Hit the comments. Stay tuned for updates. Sub up to the channel. It's Coffee. I'm out of here.